Hello and welcome to the Overly Animated Podcast, where we take animation seriously. We provide fan-oriented and analytic discussions on a variety of animated shows and movies and anime, including Steven Universe, Gravity Falls, and Rick and Morty. I'm Dylan Hysen, and today I'm joined by Mel Moyer.
Hello.
Today, Mel and I are continuing our Pixar rewatch, and we're going to be looking back on the original Pixar film, 1995, Toy Story, the original Toy Story. You can check out our past Pixar rewatch films and all of our other podcasts at overlyanimated.com. We're going to, I think, get right into it. Before we start, though, a warning. I feel like with this film, there's a lot of... This is kind of like a nostalgia-destroying warning. With this one, a lot of people are really super emotionally attached to Toy Story. And I've read the currents of Mel's, I don't think that's a phrase, but of Mel and I's opinions on our rewatch of Toy Story just now. And I feel like we're going to be heavily critical. So, like, if you don't want your nostalgic favorites being criticized, I would not listen to this specific episode. On the other hand, if you like your favorites being called out on maybe problems with them, which I think Ian Waffles on Tumblr told me that when I said we were going to do Toy Story, like that's going to be interesting. Like, what are the flaws in this classic film that's so everyone thinks is, so perfect it always appears on the top of Pixar lists?
100 on Rotten Tomatoes.
100 on Rotten Tomatoes. Wow. Okay. Well, yeah. we'll get into that.
Because the second one has a 100 and then the last one has a 99, and
yeah,
get very bent out of shape.
Yeah.
About
Well,
that.
we've not done 2 or 3 yet, but we're going to talk about number 1 today, and we might be pretty heavily critical. So there's just a warning there. Although we're not going to be criticized for the sake of criticizing. We're going to defend all our criticisms and such. And yeah, so Mel and I just rewatched Toy Story. Mel, what?
There's a cat in here.
Mel's cat. Is
boy.
No cats in Toy Story? It's just that dog.
No,
right?
just this one.
Yeah, it's okay. So, what did you think of Toy Story like when you were a kid and you watched it? Do you have like these nostalgic feelings for it? And what do you think this time?
I actually don't. I mean, I never really was huge into Toy Story, any of them, but particularly the first one. Watching it again, I had pretty, I don't want to say apathetic reaction, because there were things I was looking at and saying, well, this isn't so great, or this aspect is good, but I honestly, I've never really cared that much for Toy Story. And upon rewatching, this is the first time in years I've watched the first Toy Story film. That opinion has not changed.
So, like, I know that, so you said you haven't watched it in years. I know that, but like I've said I'm not crazy about this film, so that may have colored your memories of it. But what do you remember thinking of it? Like, I didn't love it that much, or you just not have much feelings in general for it?
When I was younger watching it, like last time I watched,
or like what you remember of when you were younger, last time you watched.
I remember being stressed out about the end chase scene. But other than that, like, I just never really watched it. It was never like the movie that I wanted to watch often. Especially the second one, and then I go to see the third one because everyone went to see the third one, and all my friends were talking about how great of a movie it was, and I didn't think it was all, I thought it was good, but the ending wasn't that great and all that other stuff. But I honestly just never really had feelings for Toy Story.
Yeah, like, here's the thing. Mel and I are both 22, and I think we're outside of this. I mean, spoilers on our age, or that's not really spoilers. Revealing our pure. Yeah. So, like, I think we're outside of the
age bracket.
The age bracket that feels super nostalgic about this film. Like, Mel and I were, 2 or 3 when this came out, right? This is not something that this is not the Pixar film that I look back on and remember just constantly watching, around kindergarten, early elementary school. For me, that's Monsters, Inc. That's Finding Nemo, it's not this one or the sequel. And I think there's some people our age who maybe had, an older sibling, and so they just watched it all the time with the older sibling, and who got them into it or something like that. And so maybe some people in our age bracket did, but we're not the type of people that are not the type, we're just not the age of people that were super affected by this film. I remember this always having a huge, not necessarily impact, but like I remember it existing when I was younger. I remember watching it, but it's not like it came out. It was watching it like on DVD or something,
Mm-hmm.
Not that DVDs existed then, but
VHS.
Yeah, probably VHS of it. So I remember it's like, so Toy Story, I rewatched it, for the first time in a while, like a few years ago. And going in, I was like, okay, this is going to be the best thing ever because everyone loves it. And I wasn't super excited by it. And this time, that's what colored my watching for it this time. And again, I'm not super excited by it rewatching it this time. Like, so Toy Story has elements to it which are really good, and as a first film of a studio, it's incredibly impressive. But it's narratively, compare it to some of the ones we've already talked about on this rewatch series, like WALL-E, Ratatouille, even Inside Out. Have we discussed any others? I don't know.
The Incredibles.
The Incredibles, yeah. Compare this to The Incredibles narratively. Like, this is not even close.
Which reminds me, real quick, my my roommate has The Incredibles on our list of perfect or near perfect films.
I think that's actually true though. Like,
it was really funny we were talking about.
Yeah, like we talked about that in the Incredibles rewatch. Social criticisms aside, which we discussed heavily in that podcast, and you can go back and watch that Overly Animated, listen to that overlyanimated.com. But it's social criticisms aside, that film is narratively so good. Yeah. This one is like not that. I feel like the last 40 minutes of this film are like actively boring.
Literally that's the thing though too, is they lose me after, like, I guess it's halfway through when Buzz and Woody like get lost when they fall out of the window. Like, that's where I remember as a kid like losing interest in the film. Like, I had no interest when they were at Sid's house. The car chase was like stressful, but it was not entertaining for me as a kid. And that's what I think, it's not even like the ending, it's like the entire second half, or I guess second act into the third act of the movie is just not at all entertaining for me.
Yeah, I mean, I have no memory of how I, felt about specific things about it when I was younger, but I can tell you.
Sid's house.
I think, I don't know, I guess I remember Sid being more terrifying than he was on this rewatch, which makes sense.
It wasn't even that he scared me, it was that I got bored during that.
Okay, yeah, well, this, I can tell you what I think about it now, though, and once we get to Sid's house, this movie is narratively uninteresting. It's interesting because we've talked, not the movie, but the separate thought is that we talked on this rewatch series a few times about how narratively a lot of films are great in premise and then kind of devolve once we get into the actual narrative structure of the film. And I thought this is just a recent thing for Pixar, like WALL-E and later. It's like, okay, the great concept, and then we just get off course when we get to the actual plot. But we have the original, and it's the perfect example of this. Yeah. Like, the concept of this movie is I mean, I don't personally think this concept is incredible, but it's like, it's good, it's interesting, and the way they establish it expositionally is very good. A lot of the things in the beginning of the film are very good. And then once we actually get into the plot of Woody and Buzz trying to make their way back to Andy, which this is so, I don't know if this is like a realization or if this is a coincidence, like that realization that all movies are like this, but here's another film where the plot of it is two characters, like with a buddy cop dynamic, try to get back to where they were in the beginning of the film. This is Frozen. This is what other ones we talk about? Inside Out. And this is Inside Out. This is just every film, and it's just very frustrating. Like, I don't think this narrative element is even good. I can't think of a good example of it in a film right now. And it's certainly colored by the specific ones we've watched recently, right? But
yeah.
But it's frustrating, especially having watched the recent ones. It's like, okay, Pixar, the biggest flaw with Inside Out is them making the same mistake again that they've made ever since their first film. That's a little frustrating.
Yeah.
That being said, this film in the first half is at times very delightful. I will say that. It's delightful.
It's whimsical.
It's whimsical.
It's very novel, I think. And I think that owes itself a lot to Randy Newman's score.
Yeah, certainly. That's one of the things I've written down as one of the highlights of it is Randy Newman's score, especially the 3 original songs he has. You Got a Friend in Me playing at the beginning of this is so good.
The cloud.
The cloud.
The cloud, his wallpaper, the cloud wallpaper.
Yeah, that's like very visual or very like visceral imagery in our memories and stuff like that. I mean, that's very good. Just it's the establishing of how all the toys interact and how you have all these classic toys and how they each have like these unique personalities based off of, it's like we have a Mr. Potato Head. I know here's Mr. Potato Head voiced by Don Rickles, right? It shouldn't be taken for granted how interesting that must be watching it for the first time. And I hadn't seen this film in a while, so I feel like I got a little bit of it this time. It's like if you don't know anything about the concept, you walk in the theater and you see this, that must be really, especially at the time when these toys are more of an actual thing and there's not like computers everywhere now. That must be just such kind of an affecting concept for the film. Mm-hmm. And I think it's lost a little bit of that. I think in terms of how well this film holds up now, like it certainly doesn't make as much sense because like these toys aren't as much of a thing and there's like no technology involved in this. Animation wise, I think it holds up very well actually, which is pretty interesting. That's what we've said about every Pixar film so far.
Yeah.
Like this film's animation is fine. It was made in 1995. It's Pixar has like made great strides in their animation, but at the same time, I wouldn't say that Inside Out's animation was significantly better like than Toy Story's. It certainly had elements of it that were super.
All the humans look the same.
Yeah, I mean, it's different. You could argue that the Toy Story humans almost look more realistic than the Inside Out humans, but maybe they probably do look similar. I mean, there's nothing in this film that's like the emotions having like their shining, thing, like in Toy Story. Like that's just so visually interesting, and there's nothing like that here. But other than that, it's not too far off. Story wise, I feel like this holds up because it is the same plot as Inside Out, the most recent film, so it's got a similar thing. Socially, no, it doesn't hold up because this film is one of the most male films I've ever seen. Yeah. So I mean, we'll talk about that too. And that in that element, we're not gonna love it on the thing, but it's on this podcast because we've talked about this many times. But it's I don't know. It's like what loaves. So like this film has a narrative before the last 40 minutes, though. I feel like there's almost two elements to it because they are trying to get back to the room and to Andy before they get to Sid's house, right? Because they go to Pizza Planet, and then before that, they're trying to get to Pizza Planet, and I feel like those sequences are more successful.
Yeah, they're in the car, then they get knocked out of the car.
Yeah, like them at the gas station, I feel like is interesting. I think Pizza Planet is incredible. Like that is a location and that is a concept. And them once they're inside the claw machine, that's one of the best sequences of the film. Yeah, the claw, the aliens and the claw, their worship of the claw is pretty brilliant. That was maybe the best sequence of the film. And I'm reading about it on Wikipedia, and that was one of the last things that was added, script wise. Interesting, and it was added by so like late, I guess, in the scripting process, they brought in you look at who's credited on the screenplay for this movie, it's crazy. They brought in Joel Cohen, Alec Sokolow, who's like Joel Cohen's one of the writing partners, and Joss Whedon.
He actually, I knew that though. He actually only had 2 lines, I think, that stayed in the movie.
Yeah, so like these three didn't heavily, I feel like, influence the film, but like they added. Joss Whedon said he added Rex to it, Barbie, and he. By the way, add this to your Joss Whedon article. If Joss Whedon added Barbie to this film, who's the sheep herder, I guess? Is that who we're talking about?
I guess, because Barbie doesn't... Unless I know there was this whole thing where he, like, only 2 of the lines that he originally wrote got...
Yeah.
Made it into the final cut of the film.
If it was the herder girl who he added, then it's another, forced romance added to one of his things. So that's kind of fits in line. But if Barbie was cut, then that might make sense too, because Barbie's a character in Toy Story 3, so they would bring her back then. This is like sets the precedent for how Pixar does their scripts, because look at the Wikipedia writing sections for any Pixar film, and it's just crazy how many revisions they go through.
It's like Toy Story is the Gilgamesh of Pixar. They just keep It
is. They just keep doing it. Yeah, they really do. It's so, except with a few exceptions, these Pixar films these scripts are so heavily manufactured. Yeah. And that's kind of crazy because if you would not predict that based off of what you see. They all seem like so like genuine and like heartfelt. You wouldn't expect these to be just these heavily like studio produced scripts. And it's not true for a few exceptions. Wall-E wasn't heavily produced. I think Ratatouille was. I think Wall-E and Ratatouille were basically Andrew Stanton
Brave,
and
I
Brad
think, only
Bird.
had 2 writers on it too.
Well, yeah, Brave isn't the best example though.
I'm not saying it's a good film. I'm saying
No, not that it's a good film, but it's I honestly, I mean, we'll get into this, but I take Brave over Toy Story, which is obviously everyone would disagree with that, but I'll take Brave. I actively like Brave, but I don't think it's great. I think it's good. I think Toy Story is like good, also good, but not great. But also, it's just I was never bored. I was maybe a little bit bored during Brave, but not to the extent at the end of this film. It's Brave, changes directors and they have to cut out. I'm blanking on her name, and so I don't know if that's the best example for this. But Brave is another example of just they always like a lot of times they cut out directors. They go through incredible amounts of script revisions, and it's I feel like we should. Inside Out definitely did that. Inside Out goes through like 1 billion revisions of their script, and who did Inside Out? Pete Docter is blanking. Pete Docter's like worried he's about to get pulled off of the film, like one of Pixar's core directors, until he at the last minute pulls out this revision for the script, and it's like the idea for it. I don't know. It's a little frustrating to go and to read about the innards of Pixar's workings, because you want, I feel like naturally you would kind of want more genuine narrative, like insight from one person.
Yeah, and I mean, it does suck because you think about it, like the thing that these films always get praised for is the story and the characters, and you go to find out that it's not because 1 or 2 really good writers sat down and made a really good screenplay. It's that they passed it around, basically everyone like going for a grab bag of tropes and motifs and just manufacturing a story kind of takes away from the sort of like heart that people often assign to Pixar.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, 2 thoughts. One is that like a group of people working on like a script or the direction of a film doesn't necessarily.
Birdman had 4 screenwriters.
Birdman had 4 screenwriters. Collaboration can be a great thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's not, but this is like seemingly beyond collaboration, right? This is like revisions over someone's contributions and not necessarily a combined 4 insights into a film, more of just 4 separate things layered on top.
It's not that 4 guys sat down and said, all right, we're going to work out this story. It's that someone wrote it, they took it, mailed it off to someone else who drew lines through it, wrote this, and then repeated the process.
Yeah.
It's it feels like a machine a little bit.
Yeah, and it's like a good film can result from that, and Toy Story resulted from that. Toy Story is a good film, but it's just, you wonder if a truly great film can result from that. I would want to look back over films that are truly great to see if any of them have this dynamic. The other thing is that looking at Pixar from this angle, it almost seems like Pixar is like has a machine process of appealing towards typical Hollywood and critical sensibilities. Yeah. It's like the word I'm looking for is manufactured. They've manufactured a process to appeal to mass audiences with their films, and this process involves layers of script revisions and directorial firings and things like that. They know what the general public will eat up, and they will take strides over individual creative intent to get there. Mm-hmm. It's a pretty heavy criticism of them. And I love Pixar's films. They don't always do this, and even when they do it, they can still result in great movies. I mean, you have a really high opinion of Inside Out, and Inside Out did go through this process. Like ultimately, it was still Pete Docter's original like film and concept, so that's good. It's like it wasn't as much as some other ones, Yeah. But it still did go through this kind of machine, and it resulted in a very good film. Of note, I will take Inside Out over Toy Story as well. Nice. I don't have if you missed our Inside Out podcast, which our first one, Mel loves it. I like it, don't love it, and it's like I feel like Toy Story, Inside Out, and Brave are all similar quality films to me. Although I will certainly take Inside Out and Brave over Inside Out, then Brave, then Toy Story. Yeah. Let's get more into the specific film. We kind of ventured into generalities there. It's like okay, Woody's character is like the main character of this film. Tom Hanks, great. I
He
was
hangs.
T. Hanks. I was very unimpressed by Woody's character upon this watching of it.
He's very annoying.
That's
He's
the
not all that
thing.
sympathetic.
Yeah, that's my reaction too. I was surprised how quickly his character is like thrown into this pettiness towards Buzz arc, and it's like they do it so quick that to a certain extent it's part of his exposition, like
Yeah.
that for this character. It's like, how is Woody so beloved if his character is built upon this seemingly negative trait? And I think we all understand. Like the movie does a good job making us understand why Woody is petty towards Buzz, but it doesn't make it sympathetic.
No.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, I always was annoyed with Woody.
I mean, yeah. Again, I don't really remember how I felt.
I mean,
when
because what is
younger,
it? The
but
only scene we get before that is like
them prepping for the
him prepping for the thing, and that doesn't really tell us much. Besides, it gives
he's like a good leader and stuff. And
yeah,
he cares
and
about
2
them.
quick seconds on every character. Like, oh, here's the potato head.
Yeah.
Here's the T-Rex, and etc.
Yeah, it's to me. I don't. You can speak to this more than me, but this seems like flawed character exposition.
Yeah.
Introducing the main conflict with involving the character, especially if it's going to lead you towards non unsympatheticness when your main character in this feel good movie is probably supposed to be sympathetic.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it might be a flaw the fact that this was, they didn't start making screenplays for animated films until Beauty and the Beast. That was the first time. I mean, other studios may have been doing it, but that was the first time Disney, and I just using Disney and Pixar interchangeably in this case, but that was the first time a Disney film used a screenplay in the prepping stages of a film. So
you're saying it's like newer for
yeah. So I feel like what's going on here. I mean, if you look at the screenplay writers, these are all like Joel Cohen, Joss Whedon. Like these are all people who write 2-hour screenplays. I think it's just a flaw of like trying to get a 2-hour screenplay down into 80 minutes, and they kind of rush the beginning.
This movie is way too short and also drags a ton.
Yes.
Like, it's 80 minutes. This movie is 80 minutes with credits. And, like, that's I feel like that's probably too short to get into some...
I never understood. This is my thing, because it's like, I get that they need to keep it short because, like, kids won't sit still for that long. But if they just all these Pixar and Disney films do it, they keep it at like 78, 80 minutes. If they just bumped it like up to 90 or 95, like you'd be at an hour and a half and you'd be fine. Like it wouldn't be that much more time, but an extra 15 minutes would go a long way. I feel like in a situation like this, where you could establish Woody before making him look like a jerk.
I'm sure some of the Pixar films are not that short.
A lot of them are very short.
Incredibles is 115 minutes. Okay,
there you go. See, and that's a perfect film.
It's very close to a perfect film. I agree. And I mean, let's look at Wall-E. Wall-E's definitely not that short. But like Wall-E, 98 minutes. Yeah, I mean, and Wall-E, I feel like has sufficient time in the beginning to establish the concept. Right.
There's something to be said for the whole quality quantity thing. I think in this case, sometimes you do need a little bit more quantity.
Yeah, but I feel like the second point was that I feel like it's not just a runtime issue. I feel like the runtime issue is there, but also they don't, I think, properly allocate time for the exposition and too quickly run off into the buddy cop, get back to the place plot.
They do spend a lot of time showing us how much Woody dislikes Buzz too before they.
That's also a thing. It's like
they get out.
I mean, if you read the Wikipedia article on Toy Story, it's like Disney executives at some point are like, okay. By the way, I was going to mention this before. This is like kind of a Disney film and kind of a like collaboration between two studios. It's like a mixture between that. But
Disney had been developing software, or Pixar had been developing software for Disney before this.
It's like Disney
sort of co-movie.
Yeah, Disney was in Pixar's origins, and then also John Lasseter was with Disney, and then he goes away to Pixar, and he's not a Disney director for this film. He's a Pixar director, stuff like that. But if the Wikipedia article, Disney's executives suggest adding this buddy cop element to the film, and he watches Midnight Run, The Odd Couple. That's clearly what they're going for with Woody and Buzz, and so a lot of
comes the heat.
Yeah, and a lot of the thing, it's just a lot of the film is just derived on, is just focused on like or Woody's annoyance with Buzz, and I don't know. It gets kind of tiring. I guess it's just like no one. To a certain extent, there's no one to root for here.
Yeah, because I don't think Buzz is a very sympathetic character either, only because so much of like his character at the beginning is kind of this not a character at all because he thinks he's like this actual like it's clever to like have a toy that thinks they're actually what they're supposed to be and like totally buys into it, but it's his entire personality for the entire movie. Like he doesn't really get his own personality until the very end, and then like in Toy Story 2. And I feel like that's also part of the problem. He doesn't annoy me as much as Woody does, but there's also like there's just not much there at all. It's just him reciting like basically what are his button lines when you like press the button on his spacesuit.
I absolutely agree. He's not a real. He doesn't have a real personality, a real character until the very end. So like, who are you gonna root for? The non-person or the petty main character, right?
Non-person.
I will say that one of the most successful sequences of the film, I think, is when Buzz watches the commercial for the Buzz Lightyear toy inside the Sid house, and he attempts to fly. I feel like that's, to me, it's like that, and it's like the claw machine and Pizza Palace, and like the beginning, some parts of the beginning, are when this film truly shines. And Buzz realizing that, you know, he is a toy, and him coming to terms with this and stuff like that. It was very emotionally affecting, and I think they do a good job with that. That's also, you know, X minutes into the film, though. It's like 50 minutes into the film. That's the problem. Yeah, so I don't think Buzz is a great character because he's not a character until the end. We'll see if he's a great character in Toy Story 2. I haven't rewatched it yet. I don't think he's a great character. He's fine. Like, I don't mind these pettiness characters. I mean, I want to draw comparisons to Pearl in Steven Universe. You're not caught up yet, though. But like, there's
Pearl.
You like Pearl, but you haven't gotten to this huge petty element of Pearl, like in flashbacks and stuff towards the end.
I know what it is.
Yeah, well, it's about Rose, and it's what's great about that though is like we're still sympathetic towards Pearl because of how well they established her feelings at the root of the pettiness. And we had so many sympathetic elements of her before that happened, but there's not enough there. And to a certain extent, they do that with Woody. We understand why he's being petty, and we had a few sympathetic elements before, but it's not nearly enough. And it drags too much. Like with Pearl, it's just a few episodes where we have this element with her, and for the majority of the time, she's still sympathetic. And I think she's sympathetic with in the other episodes too. But with Woody, it's just this consumes his character.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's great. Yeah, I think we actually hit on all my points already, so that's good. I don't know. I mean, what were your? I've said my highlight scenes of the film. Well, where did it shine for you, if at all?
No, I always love the claw scene because I think those little green aliens are adorable. I wouldn't say like thinking about the film like that's a standout scene to me, but now that you mention it, like yeah, like that is a really good scene. It's a really clever scene. Definitely Buzz trying to fly in that song. I forget the name of that song, but the song that plays and then he falls and stuff and his like arm is flown off.
Yeah.
Is really good. And the opening sequence, like for when they're like pretending to be whatever when they're being like played with and stuff like I think all that's really good, but those are like the only three scenes when I think about Toy Story, the first one that I remember. But I mean and I'm not sure like if you look at like the first one, if they're good because they're good or good because like there's a nostalgia attached to it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's it. I mean, I don't really have like standout scenes in this film because so much of it is like road movie meets like you said, the buddy cop, and then there's a chase scene at the end that goes on forever. So it's like
let's talk about the ending. So there's kind of, I mean, I'm trying to remember what happened before the chase scene now. There's so there's like two climaxes to this film, which is a little bit of a problem on its own. But there's when Buzz is trapped to the rocket outside, and then they go through this scaring the Sid thing.
Yeah.
With all the toys. Oh
yeah, that was creepy.
Yeah. I think that scene was well executed.
I thought the concept of him like playing Frankenstein on the toys was kind of interesting because it was very morbid, but you didn't realize how morbid it was, I think, until you were a little bit older.
What's really interesting about the see, I feel like it's the opposite. I feel like when you're young, like Sid is like really scary, and like him like changing off the tops of the toys is like really frightening. But then when you actually think about it, like from a moral perspective, now it's like these are just toys, you know? Like
yeah, but they're like living things.
yeah, but they're like living things. That's
and
the
none
thing.
of them talk. And I feel
But it's like, is Sid doesn't know this though. Like Sid is not like this terrible child, right? He's just changing off toys' heads for each other. It's not that bad from his perspective.
he's being creative.
It's like an analog to the kid that like tortures animals. You know, that's what it really is. It's like this metaphor for that, but it's not. I don't know if it's a metaphor. It's just kind of replacing one thing with another. This like disturbed child, but it's
an analogy.
It's interesting if you like get into the specifics of it, because it shows the problems that arise from these toys being like these conscious beings that would just inevitably happen, but they hide their consciousness to everyone. Like this type of thing would happen.
They never explain why that had to happen.
They know, yeah. They also don't get into the rules of it. Here's a random point, by the way. Why does Buzz go with this be stationary and inactive when humans are around shtick? Even though he
knows he's a
even
toy.
though he doesn't know he's a toy, a toy yet. Why? Do you have an answer for this?
I don't, and they honestly, no one ever thinks about. I feel like it never comes up that they never talk about why they feel the need to.
Am I missing something?
No.
Like I feel like this is a big plot hole.
Plot hole.
Yeah. I don't. I mean, it's not like it's glaring and it doesn't ruin it, but I did have that thought. Yeah. So that sequence where they're scaring Sid, I feel like that's good. It's fine. I didn't think it was exceptional. It was cool, I guess. Another question I have is how Woody is able to imitate his toy box voice, and also do his real voice. So that means that suggests he has control over his voice box and his like actual human toy voice.
But like he doesn't, because there's times when it gets pulled
and
like,
it just says it automatically.
He just says it automatically.
Well, I guess in theory it could be that it can happen automatically and he can control it, but he can't stop it. I don't know.
The mechanics of this world are falling apart.
I question this. So we have that, and that's fine. And if the movie ended after that, I mean, it'd be too short, but it wouldn't be the worst. But then we get this whole chase scene with them getting onto the moving van, and I just don't care about anything that's happening. Oh man, like wow, it's. I mean, we have the fates of two characters who we don't care about that much, and at this point, I do care about Buzz a little bit because he had that great sequence. So this is post-conscious Buzz, He's actually a person at this point.
Character Buzz.
Yeah. So, like, I guess I care about him a little bit. But then we have this whole element of the rest of the toys still thinking that Woody's evil. And it's like they throw him back over, stuff like that. And that doesn't make us sympathetic towards anyone. I mean, you understand why they would think that. At the same time, we also have Mr. Potato Head, who's kind of a villain here, which is interesting. And annoying because he's voiced by Don Rickles, who should be awesome. And it's, I don't know, I didn't care about any of it at the end with the moving van.
Yeah, no, I don't. I think it's funny when when Mr. Potato Head's kind of being a jerk to them, but I don't. It goes on there's a rocket, and they like that whole sequence leading up to it too. And Buzz is strapped to the rocket, and they're like, "Oh, we have to go get him out," and now we have to chase the moving van. Like I know it's probably only like 10, 15 minutes long.
Oh, it feels like half an hour. Though.
But it feels like it's the entire movie.
Yeah, it really does. Not a fan of that. And it's hard to have a hugely successful movie if you have this dud of a climax like it does, I would say.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, compare this to Frozen, and I mean, we don't need to get into Mel's feelings on Frozen, but for me, like the highlight of Frozen is the climax. No spoiler. It's
the fjord.
I don't remember where it was, but once we get this moment between Anna and Elsa at the end, like that is hugely emotionally affecting, and it's like everything's worth it now that we went through this dumb journey with Anna and what's his face, like, and it's like, okay, that's worth it because we get this incredible moment, and I don't think we have that in Toy Story to make this dumb journey worth it.
Yeah, no, honestly, and there's really the thing is, there's no like real emotion in it. I mean, at least you've got like the road movie in Frozen, pretty boring and annoying, but at least there's like emotion there, and you have characters that are established that you care about, and you do want them to get to the point where they're going to. Here, it was like the last 15 minutes of this chase scene are just like all about suspense, and there's literally no emotion in it whatsoever.
I think there's elements of that in the Frozen chase scene. It's like when they're on the sled at some point, I feel like I remember.
Oh yeah, when they get chased by the wolves.
It's like, it's just, I feel like that goes on for a while too. But but the thing is that's in the middle of the film. This is the ending of the film. This is the climax in Toy Story. And it's this isn't the time to have it's the time when you have the dumb action sequence in the action film, but I feel like this is like not, I don't know, it's like not an action film, and I don't care about these characters even as much as I do about Tom Cruise in Mission Impossible, which is kind of an indictment. Like, I don't know, just that's what I was talking about with the action film analogy, right? Like, it's like even some dumb action protagonist, I feel like I maybe care about more than Woody at the end.
Yeah, no. Honestly,
people are probably
just annoys the crap out of me.
People are probably screaming at us for
and
that.
He doesn't even. I don't even think he gets better in the other movies because it's just that I know him as the guy who is a petty jerk. He's also kind of bossy.
I need to rewatch. He is bossy, yeah. I mean, and he's allowed to have flaws, but that's like all he is to a certain extent.
He's a toy made of.
I do remember Toy Story 3, the climax of Toy Story 3 being more emotionally affecting than anything with this. When they're in the incinerator, yeah, I remember that being much better than anything here. You at some point said that Toy Story 3 is just a rehash of Toy Story 2. So that's going to be interesting. I haven't seen Toy Story 2 recently enough to comment on that yet. But we will go through.
That's why you got a 99.
Because it was just one guy said it was a rehash.
That was a big deal. People got very mad because like one reviewer gave it a negative review, and everyone's like, he just did it so it wouldn't have a trilogy of 100%. And I was like, I don't think any of them deserve a 100%.
That movie I don't think deserves a 100%. I think this film definitely does not deserve 100%. The Incredibles, fine if that's 100%. Like, I agree, that's a near perfect film.
It's like 90 something.
I mean, that's like, I don't know. Like, the difference between one minor critic liking and not liking is not that too relevant. I feel like people get too up in arms of that. But yeah, it's. Well, one other thing I wanted to mention is that in the Wikipedia article again, it talks about how John Lasseter screened Miyazaki's Castle in the Sky towards the end to try to influence this film further. And I can totally see that, because Castle in the Sky is the same two people having a dynamic of trying to get somewhere. And like, this worries me because Castle in the Sky is an incredible film, that Laputa Castle in the Sky. And
is that how you say it?
Laputa.
I've been saying it wrong.
I don't know. They probably pronounce it differently, sub-and-dub. I don't know.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, and it's not even a Japanese word to begin with, so it's one of those things. And, like, that film has... I don't know. I'll podcast on this. Are you signed up for that one?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, so we'll probably do this at some point. And that film is, like, flawed in the similar way that this film is flawed, in that this dynamic of doing things with this two people and it gets exhausting, and we're doing so many things and we're just trying to get somewhere and it takes so forever to get there. But like with Laputa, it's so inventive and visually interesting. And once they even get to Laputa, it's like the most fascinating place ever. And it's just, we have these interesting side characters who they interact with, the pirates on the way. And it just makes this incredible journey. And it ultimately ends up being one of the great films, one of the truly great films. But we try to emulate that here. I feel like the elements of that film which make it truly great are not the buddy two character dynamic and the journey. And it's like, we're taking that, but we're leaving behind the interesting parts. Like, we're going, Sid's house is the destination. That's not, it was kind of an interesting location, but it's not. The one time I think that the movie truly replicates Laputa is when we're at Pizza Palace. Like, that to me is like a really interesting location. It's funny, it's inventive. They have the claw scene that's funny and inventive, and it's visually interesting. And so we kind of get there at one point, but just nowhere near to the extent of that film. And I feel like we really shouldn't be trying to replicate the dynamics of Castle in the Sky unless you're Miyazaki, because I feel like he's one of the only people that can pull it off to this extent.
Yeah. No, I mean, I guess I need to rewatch I want to say the word that it comes from, which is like the Laputians in
Yeah, it's not. Well, it's not the Lilliputian. The word is not Lilliputian, but it's like,
but it was
kind of similar deriving of that. Yeah,
from Gulliver's Travels. But anyway, I honestly don't see this. Like, I guess I see the similarity, like you said, in terms of like the mechanics of it, where you've got these two people trying to get to a place. But other than that, like, I don't see any analog at all between those two movies.
Well,
So it's very interesting you said that.
We'll rewatch them and then we'll see, I guess, and when we talk about that. Yeah, I worry about replicating Miyazaki, but not with the imagination of him. I guess that's
or the care. I feel like a bit,
and the characters are more the sympatheticness and the main characters and stuff like that. Even though I don't love either of the main characters in Cast in the Sky, like I that'll be an interesting podcast when you do it, because I feel like
I actually think that was one of my more favorite ones.
Like in terms of film or characters.
Just in terms of, I think it was with the concept, because it was
no, that's the thing. Like, I have a lot of criticism for Cast in the Sky, but I do ultimately think it's truly great. That'll be an interesting one when we talk about it. But yeah, I don't know. Just in summary, I guess with Toy Story, because I feel like we've exhausted my talking points. Do you have anything else you want to bring up specifically?
Not unless you want to get into the social issues of the film.
We can talk about that briefly. Just, I mean, both of the toys are gendered male. It's a boy. It's another evil boy, and all of the
boy dog. It's
all of the. I guess all dogs are presented male. That's like a more general problem.
The minions.
Like the Minions, all dogs equals Minions. You heard it here first. Stop. And all the toys in general are male, except for the one specifically coded love interest, and Mrs. Potato Head is not even in this film. So it's just, I don't know. This is very much a product of 90s film where you would expect this type of thing.
Yeah, that was one thing. Like, that was like, this is probably the most male heavy cast I've ever.
It's like even
which it's not. I'm sure there are others. But
it's like we criticized The Incredibles for being heteronormative, and we have the caveat that to a certain extent it's supposed to be with its concept, but like that has two very prominent female characters. There's just none here. Absolutely zero.
Yeah, no.
And
And
that doesn't help the sympatheticness. In fact, it actively hurts it when I just don't. Everyone's male, and I don't see any. And it makes you question it while watching it, which further distances you emotionally from the film.
Yeah. And all the human characters are white too.
Yeah, also that's the other thing. Everyone's white. Absolutely everyone.
Including the toys.
That's true. All the toys are white. The family's white. Luck's family's white. It's I mean, this is very much a white person film. It's like it's specifically specifically middle class white person film. And I don't know. Yeah.
Good.
Good talk. It's worth mentioning. I don't have much to say about it other than that, though.
Yeah, I guess it's not quite as hidden or disguised as it is in like WALL-E or.
Yeah, like WALL-E, it's like we have to like break it apart to get down to the heteronormativity. Here, it's just like it's there, and it's bad, and it's there.
This was pre or right in the smack dab middle of the '90s male crisis. So.
Oh well,
I wrote a paper on that in my film class.
Ooh, interesting. I don't know about that. You'd have to educate me on that one.
I will educate you. Open up my paper.
I'll read Mel's school.
It was interesting because I tied it into Disney films at one point because I was like, it was the reason Beauty and the Beast was presented the way it was in '91.
Interesting. Mm-hmm. We need to talk about Beauty and the Beast.
Beauty and the Beast.
Ooh, the booty there you go. Okay. In conclusion, overall, what adjective would you use to describe Toy Story? I would say still good. Like, I still think it's good. I feel like you're maybe even more negative on it. You might say, like, fine.
Yeah, honestly, it's okay. I'm sure, like, I know, like, in my head, like, it is a fairly, like, good movie, I suppose, but I don't know. I don't know if it's, like, it's weird being in the minority of things like what the Tumblr calls the unpopular opinions, because you think to yourself, okay, well, I must be doing something wrong if everyone loves this, but I can't get over the issues I have.
Like, this is, to a certain extent, how I feel with Inside Out. It's like, if you take issue with it, it's you still want to call it good in the end, even if it's hard to not call it good. But that being said, with Inside Out, I do think it's genuinely good, because Inside Out has its moments of brilliance. I know Toy Story, I brought up these good moments. They don't approach those emotional moments in Inside Out. But I also think Inside Out, I guess, generally more interesting than Toy Story. Yeah. I mean, definitely generally more interesting, but I mean, both have this. You can see the narrative problem that I have with both of them. Very similar.
Yeah.
Ranking Toy Story among the Pixar films, I have here all 14 Pixar films ranked that I did at some point. Guess where Toy Story is?
The bottom.
Toy Story is second from the bottom.
Oh, what's at the bottom?
Cars 2.
Oh, I knew that.
Yes, but I actually see. Here's the thing, though. I actually liked Cars 2.
I have not seen any of the Cars movies.
Yeah, so like on my list, the bottom three are Cars 2 is the worst, Toy Story second worst, Cars third worst, which, okay, you are just probably infuriated listeners right now that I ranked Cars ahead of Toy Story. That is like a sin in the animation world. But here's the thing. Cars is actually a good film. I encourage you to rewatch it. It is actually a good film, I'm telling you. And Toy Story is almost not a good film. That's the I mean, we just talked about...
I can understand that logic. Toy Cars is a good... Okay, yeah.
We talked about it for 45 minutes. Like, it's not like I think Toy Story is bad and I think it's worse than a bad film. Cars is actually a good film, I'm telling you. I don't know, at least I think so. Like, on my list right now, my bottom 5 are...
I think it's because people like to say that sort of Cars isn't a smart concept.
Yeah.
Like, if you think about it in the realm of Pixar concepts. Like
which I agree with. This is a better concept than Cars. I agree with that, but like, so what?
I think people take that way too far.
But so what, you know?
Yeah.
Here's my bottom 5. Brave, Toy Story 2, Cars, Toy Story, Cars 2.
Oh boy.
I may move Brave up on rewatch. I'm not sure. I have A Bug's Life above it right now. Interesting.
My boo. I love Bug's Life, but nobody. That was my movie when I was a kid. Like that. Like,
that was still pretty early, though.
It was, but even before like Monsters Inc., because obviously I didn't see Bug's Life in theaters.
Yeah.
No, I did see Bug's Life in theaters.
I don't. What year was it? I don't know if you would remember that, but it's possible.
I did. Don't make me.
Okay, we've argued about memories before, but we don't need to get back into that.
Came out in...
It was 1998.
98. I saw that.
5. You could have remembered seeing it in theaters. I doubt. Like, I don't know. I don't remember.
The only thing I recall from it is the scene where Hopper tries to like smash, like curb stomp.
Have you seen it since then?
Yeah, I've watched it a few times. I love that movie, and no one pays attention to it.
We'll talk. Okay, we'll talk about it. We'll continue the thing.
But not ants.
But not ants. No, we won't podcast on ants. Anyway, so where would you rank Toy Story among the Pixar films off the top of your head?
Ooh.
Well, you haven't seen the Cars, so...
I haven't seen Cars, so...
Is any Pixar film worse than it that you've seen, that you think of? I would say no, based off of your reaction.
No, I mean, I'm sure if I saw Cars, that would be the case, but
honestly... Yes, like, I mean, two Cars are 2 of the 3, but my...
And again, it's not because I think it's a terrible, awful, awful, wrenching experience. It's just because I am so apathetic to the film because it doesn't grab me at all. And I suppose it's like what you said, where that makes it almost a bad film, not necessarily that it is or almost not a good film, where it's not necessarily a bad film, it's just there's nothing, it's like baseline, there's nothing that takes it above.
I feel like based off of how you've talked about it today, you would say that it's not a bad film, but also not a good film. It's just neutral.
I'm very neutral on it.
Like, for me, like, here's the thing, when comparing Toy Story to the tippy top Pixar films, for me, which is WALL-E, Ratatouille, The Incredibles. To me, The Incredibles is like, yeah, exactly. It's like if The Incredibles is a 10 out of 10, which I think is reasonable. I would say The Incredibles is almost a perfect film, but like, and if you're grading, this is a dumb thing to feel passionate about, but if you're grading on a 10 out of 10 scale, 10 shouldn't be only perfect, because nothing's perfect, you know? Like, 10 should be just the best of the best. And
perfect or near perfect films. That's what we call it. My roommate calls her list.
I feel like that's, and I'm fine with that. The Incredibles near perfect. If The Incredibles is a 10 out of 10 for me, Toy Story is like a 6 out of 10. And I feel like for you, it's like a 5 out of 10, probably.
Yeah. Not.
Like, that's a big difference. The Incredibles and Toy Story. Incredibles is so much better. I don't know how to say it anymore. It's unfortunate we didn't disagree on Toy Story, but we also got productive discussion.
That's exactly what you said when you're like, oh, well, this is gonna go. That's why it's only 45 minutes.
Yeah, well, that's why this is one of our shorter ones. Well, I mean, I'm encouraging you guys to tell me why we're wrong on this. I'm not discrediting people who love it, you know? Like, first of all, if you love it because, you know, it's a film that affected you as a child and you have memories of it emotionally, like, that's completely fine. Like, you can even like bad films like that. But also, if you just think it's a genuinely great film, that's also fine. I mean, we're in the minority on this. You guys have legitimacy here. So I would encourage you to write us, email us, or send us on Tumblr. You can find all of those social media links at overlyanimated.com. And you can tell us why we're wrong on this. What other scenes to you stood out? What are we missing? You know, stuff like that. A lot of people think Toy Story 2 is better than Toy Story.
I guess.
I mean, I haven't seen it recently.
Yeah, I'd have to rewatch it. The thing that comes to mind is Jesse. Is kind of, I think, what
Jesse
what really makes that
at
movie
least
strong.
is a female presence in the film. Yeah, so we'll talk about that maybe next. Maybe that'll be the next one we do. Even though I'd rather do, I don't even know, A Bug's Life next. Monsters Inc. We still have to do Up, Finding Nemo, which I'm not looking forward to, even though I think that's a great film. I've just seen it so many times. I don't need to see that again, but we will to talk about it. And I don't know, and Brave, obviously. That'll be one of our interesting ones.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Last thoughts on Toy Story? Yep, there you go. That's the general synopsis. I'm Dylan Hysen. That's Mel Moyer. Mel, where can we find you on social media?
At Mel Moy on Twitter, themelmoy.tumblr.com.
I'm Dylan OVA on Tumblr, Dylan_OVA on Twitter, and you can send us after the podcast, overlyanimated.com. You can support us on Patreon at patreon.com/overlyanimated. Yesterday we had our Patreon exclusive podcast. So if you're not a patron, you miss out on this once a month, and it was pretty hopping. Mel was not there, but
I was not there.
but it was it was pretty hopping. We talked about future topics we might discuss and stuff like that, and we got some hopefully good material for the future. And if you want to get in on this sweet exclusive monthly podcast action, you can support us at patreon.com/overlyanimated. Thanks to our current patrons, who at various points throughout the podcast, all of them were there. Thumbs up. Ooh, we got everyone. Nate, Cordell, Shayna, Beatrice, and Mitch. Nathan Fillion, Cordell University, Shayna, Beatrix Strange, and Fever Mitch. Thanks to you guys for supporting us last month and this month, and thanks to future patrons, I guess. I don't know. Check us out at overlyanimated.com. We'll continue this Pixar rewatch probably next to Toy Story 2. We'll see. But yeah, we'll see you guys next time. Thanks for listening. Bye.
Adios.